At the will reading, they said I deserved nothing. And everyone agreed, out loud. My brother smirked, my sister nodded. Even my uncle, who I hadn't seen in 5 years, muttered something about how it made sense. They looked at me like I was a stranger who had wandered into the wrong room, like I'd shown up to claim something that was never mine to begin with. I almost believed them, but they didn't know the lawyer hadn't spoken yet, and they definitely didn't know what my father had written. I should probably explain how we got here. How a family ends up in a room, dividing a dead man's belongings while pretending the person sitting 3 feet away doesn't exist. My father passed 3 weeks ago. Heart attack. Sudden. No warning, no goodbye. And honestly, I wasn't surprised I was the last one to find out. My brother called me 4 days after it happened. 4 days. He left a voicemail, didn't even wait for me to pick up. Hey, Dad died. Funeral's on Saturday. Thought you should know. That was it. No emotion, no details. Just facts delivered like he was reading off a grocery list. That's how it had always been with my family. I was the afterthought, the forgotten one. The name they had to be reminded to add to the group chat. My brother was the golden child, successful, charismatic, could charm anyone in 30 seconds. He ran the family business with my father. Took over operations, made the big decisions, got all the praise. My sister was the perfect daughter, organized, obedient, always knew how to say exactly what our parents wanted to hear. She lived 10 minutes away, visited every Sunday, brought the grandkids over for holidays. And me? I was the one who left. Not in anger, not with some dramatic fight or a slammed door. I just needed space. I moved 6 hours away, got a job in a different city, built a life that didn't revolve around their approval. They called it abandoning the family. I called it surviving because staying meant shrinking. It meant pretending I didn't hear the comments. Pretending it didn't hurt when my accomplishments were met with silence while my brothers were celebrated with champagne. So I stopped trying. I stopped showing up to events where I was invisible. I stopped calling when no one ever called back. And eventually, the distance became permanent. When the lawyer's office called and said there was a will reading, I almost didn't go. What was the point? My father barely acknowledged me when he was alive. Why would death change that? But something told me I should. Maybe it was closure. Maybe it was some tiny, stubborn hope that just once my father had actually seen me. So I drove 6 hours, booked a cheap hotel room, and walked into that law office like I was walking into enemy territory. The conference room was cold. Not just temperature, though the air conditioning was blasting, but cold in the way places feel when no one wants you there. I walked in and the conversation stopped. My brother was leaning against the wall, talking to my uncle. He glanced at me, gave a half nod, then went back to his conversation. My sister was sitting at the table, flipping through her phone. She looked up, gave me a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes, and said, "Hey, that was it. Hey." No hug. No, how are you? No acknowledgement that we'd just lost our father. I sat down at the far end of the table, away from everyone, because that's where I'd always belonged. My uncle, my father's younger brother, was pacing near the window. He'd always been loud, opinionated, the kind of man who thought his presence made him important. He looked at me and said, "Didn't think you'd show." I didn't respond. "Long drive for nothing," he added, chuckling to himself. My brother smirked but said nothing. The only person who acknowledged me like a human being was the lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s with silver hair pulled back tight, glasses perched on her nose, and an expression that gave away nothing. "Please have a seat," she said, gesturing to the empty chairs. Her voice was calm, professional. The kind of calm that comes from years of watching families tear each other apart over money. I sat and I waited. The lawyer began with the standard legal language: assets, property, bank accounts, business shares. My brother leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, already calculating his inheritance. My sister had a notebook out, pen poised, ready to write down numbers. I just sat there, hands folded on the table, trying not to feel like I was 12 years old again, sitting outside the principal's office while my brother got an award. Then my uncle spoke up. "Just so we're clear," he said, looking directly at me. "This is for family, right? People who actually showed up." There was a pause. Then a few people chuckled, quietly, but loud enough for me to hear. I felt my jaw tighten, but I didn't respond. My brother added almost casually, "I mean, let's be honest, he wasn't even around." Dad probably forgot he existed. More laughter, sharper this time. My sister didn't laugh, but she didn't stop them either. She just stared at her notebook, pen frozen in her hand. I looked down at my hands and felt something old and familiar rise in my chest. Shame, anger, the feeling of being small. I thought about leaving. Just standing up, walking out, letting them have it all. Because what was the point? They'd already decided I didn't belong. But then the lawyer cleared her throat. It wasn't loud, but it cut through the room like a blade. "If I may continue," she said, her voice cold and precise. The laughter stopped. She adjusted her glasses and turned a page in the document in front of her. "There is a specific clause," she said slowly, deliberately, "that pertains to the primary beneficiary of the estate." The room shifted. My brother sat up straighter. My sister's pen hit the table. My uncle stopped pacing. "What do you mean, primary?" my uncle asked, his voice suddenly cautious. The lawyer didn't answer him. She just kept reading. And I felt my heart start to pound. "To my son," she read aloud, her voice steady and clear, "who left not out of spite but out of strength, who built a life without asking for my approval, who never begged to be seen." The room went completely silent. I felt my chest tighten. "My father wrote that," the lawyer continued. "I leave the family home, the savings accounts, the investment portfolio, and all personal assets excluding the business shares, which will be distributed separately to him." My brother stood up. "What? That can't be right." "Sit down," the lawyer said. Her tone wasn't harsh, but it left no room for argument. He sat. My sister's face had gone pale. "There has to be a mistake." The lawyer looked at her, unmoved. "There is no mistake. This will was drafted 18 months ago, reviewed by 2 separate legal teams, and signed in the presence of 3 witnesses." She turned another page. "To my other children," she continued, "I leave what they have always valued most, the business. All shares, all control, all responsibility. May it teach them what I could not." The words landed like stones in water. My uncle tried to speak, but the lawyer held up a hand. "There's more," she said. She looked down at the document, and for the first time, her expression softened, just slightly. "I know my son will not gloat," she read. "I know he will not throw this in anyone's face. That is why he deserves it. Not because he is better, but because he is free. He learned to live without needing my validation. And that is the greatest thing I could have taught him. Even if I taught it by accident, I couldn't breathe." The lawyer folded the document and looked directly at me. "Your father came to see me a year and a half ago," she said quietly. "He told me he'd made mistakes. He said he didn't know if you'd ever forgive him. But he wanted to do one thing right." Her voice softened even more. "He said, 'Give it to the one who doesn't need my approval anymore. Because he's the only one who'll know what to do with freedom.'" I felt something break inside me, not in a bad way. In the way a dam breaks when it's been holding back too much for too long. Tears I didn't know I had started to burn behind my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. Not yet. My brother was staring at the table, his jaw clenched. My sister had tears streaming down her face, not from sadness but from shock. from realizing that the person they dismissed had been seen all along. My uncle looked like someone had slapped him. No one said a word. The lawyer stood. If there are any legal challenges, you're welcome to file them. But I assure you, this will is ironclad. Your father made his intentions very clear. She handed me a thick folder. These are your copies. Contact information is inside if you have questions. Take your time. And then she left. I sat there for what felt like an hour, but was probably only a minute. The folder was heavy in my hands. My brother finally spoke. His voice was quiet, smaller than I'd ever heard it. Did you know? I shook my head. No. My sister wiped her eyes. What are you going to do? I looked at her. Really looked at her, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel bitterness. I just felt tired and free. I'm going to go home, I said quietly, and I'm going to figure it out. I stood up, tucked the folder under my arm, and walked toward the door. As I reached for the handle, my sister called out, "Wait!" I turned. She looked at me, tears still on her face, struggling to find words. "I'm sorry," she said. I nodded. I know. And I left. I didn't go to that reading expecting anything. I went because I thought I owed it to my father. One last time. One last attempt to be part of something I was never really part of. But what I didn't expect was for him to finally see me. Not as the son who left. Not as the one who didn't fit. Not as the disappointment, but as the one who was strong enough to walk away and build something real. They said I deserved nothing, but my father disagreed. And in the end, that was all that mattered. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't need their approval. I already had his.